This lumber storage that I have in my workshop, I made quite a while ago. I made it with very simple tongue and groove joints, and I want to try and work on my joinery. So I've got a bunch of my scrap wood here. It's some maple that I got from a lawn chair out in front of someone's yard, and then also some very old oak flooring. The first type of joinery we're going to try today is just going to be another simple tongue and groove. I just want to get warmed up with my saw control and my chisel control. Eventually, by the end of the video, we're going to try a dovetail. I end up trying 2 dovetails, and the second one comes out a little bit better. Always be sure to mark your waste material. I have before accidentally cut on the wrong side of my line and had to scrap an entire piece. I'm using one of my father's old dovetail saws. It's got a round handle, and I don't really like that because it makes it a lot harder for trying to cut straight lines. It works very, very well for cutting dovetails, but not so much for straight up and down lines. This is because the handle is slightly offset to where the teeth of the saw are. Now I'm just going to cross cut to get rid of the waste of the pins, and then I'm also going to use a coping saw to get rid of the waste inside the pins. My coping saw is super dull. You can see it really grab the work and not actually cut, so it made it very, very hard to scoop out the waste material. I was fortunately able to make it work. And we're just going to remove some of that other waste material that I couldn't get with the coping saw with a nice small 1/4-inch chisel. If you'd like to support the show that I provide for you, you can do so on Patreon. There's a link in the description, and it'll really help me fund this channel and future projects. There's no pressure to donate and become a patron, but it really does help out this channel a lot. And we can now mark out where we're going to be cutting on the other boards so that the tongue and grooves can fit together. And this time I'm using my Japanese pole saw. I'm just trying out my different saws to see what I like better. And I think I ended up liking the last saw that I used the most for the dovetails. And again, we're using that super dull pole saw. You can see it's moving my bench all around, shaking the things off of it and breaking things. We are going to now check to see if the pins fit in the other grooves, and we're going to slowly cut away with our chisels anything that's stopping them from mating nicely together. If you ever do this for one of your own projects, you want to take it very slowly. It's super easy to take off too much and make a gap. I actually did accidentally make quite a few gaps in the first 2 joinery projects that I did in this video. just using a mallet that we made in a previous video to hammer those joints together. And you can see the gaps that are still there. It's going to take more control with the chisel and with the saw from me to get those better, but I think I have enough saw control. I'm warmed up now to start working on the dovetails. Right after I glue up this joint, I'm just going to go ahead and start on the dovetails. I originally thought it would be a good idea to try and make another tongue and groove joint with oak, but it didn't end up working out. When I was planning it, I just made the piece super not parallel, and I ended up scrapping that entire part of the project. So now we're going to start the dovetails. Again, I'm using this maple from a lawn chair that someone had put out on the curb. It's pretty cruddy wood, but it worked well for this application. This is the saw that I like the most for the jointery. It's a Western style saw, which means it cuts on the push cut. The Japanese saw cuts on the pull cut, and that jeweler's saw that I was using before also cuts on the push. Again, using that mallet to cut out the waste material from the pins of the dovetails, and the super dull coping saw. I just cut off that middle pin because I didn't like the way it was turning out. I didn't have enough access to the pins on the inside, those two inside edges. So cutting off that inside pin helped me get a slightly more accurate fit up. Here we're making the slots for the pins to fit into. You can see how much my workbench wiggles because of where my tool holder is starting to slide across my workbench, and eventually it does fall off and break, so I'll have to make another one of those. I was really bummed because all my sharp chisels had gotten chipped on the floor of my shop. We're now cleaning up the place where you put the pins. I don't know what it's called, you have to tell me in the comments, with a file and some chisels. I don't use the files that much. I found they weren't cutting fast enough for me, and I feel like I had enough control with the chisels. And then just hammering the pins together with the mallet that I made, and I was checking for gaps and seeing what more did I have to take off. Eventually, I did find some gaps that I wasn't able to close, but I was alright with that, seeing how it was my first try with dovetails. You can get a nice big view at all the gaps and all the tear out that I got, because I didn't properly score my pins. I made one more off camera. You can see that this one's a little bit different. There's less gaps, but it still was a little bit too tight and the wood split slightly. This was a very good learning process for me. I really learned a lot through this project, and I really hope to get better at this joinery and become a better woodworker with it. If you like this video, I hope you leave a like. If you really love what I'm doing here, I really hope you subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.